Patrice, I'm glad to have you here. So hi, everyone else as well. Most of you probably know me because I'm hosting an event, but my name is Terry Rice, and I'm a business development consultant, and that normally involves helping other entrepreneurs grow their brand and revenue. Oh, Priscilla's from Rochester. Priscilla, I grew up in Rochester, Webster, if you know where that is, like outside of Rochester. But today we have Patrice here, and Patrice is amazing because, and I'll let her introduce herself, but about 4 years ago, Patrice made a founder video for me. And I was kicking and screaming the whole time. She's like, oh, can you go over here? I'm like, no. Can you go over here? No. Can you smile? Maybe. And she put up with me long enough to get it done. I remember I put the video up on a Thursday on LinkedIn. And I said, this video is probably too long for LinkedIn, just to kind of foreshadow a little bit. But by that Monday, the video had paid for itself in new clients. Like that's how quickly the revenue came back from what I paid Patrice and what she put up with. So I've known the power of having a founder video for years as a result of that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, but not just how you can hire Patrice to do it, how you can do it yourself, even from your cell phone. And it can be as short as 60 seconds. So that's the goal for today. And I'm glad you're all here, but get your questions ready because Patrice loves questions. But Patrice, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody as well?
Yeah, I should have charged you more for that video. Like that is my takeaway. I didn't know it made it back by Monday. That was my first mistake. Yeah. No, I'm really happy to be here. So I'm a former media person. So I was at the Today Show for many years. I was at CNN, Bloomberg TV. So I've spent a lot of my career telling other people's stories. And I decided to leave that world in 2016 to work in the business way. So now I work with brands, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and I have a team that makes video content. But in particular, about 2 years ago with the COVID and it shutting down production, I had a pivot in my business. So I started adding programming and coaching experiences. And now almost specifically, I deal with founder story. I've been in this business a long time of storytelling, and I've seen it happen way too many times for it to be a fluke. I really believe that the founder story is the most valuable intellectual property that you have as a small business owner, as a solopreneur. It's the only IP that you have that, like, you don't need a legal contract. It's your story. No one can take it from you. Yet it's so underutilized because I think people, like when we're working for ourselves, you're so client focused, customer focused that you tend to put yourself on the back burner. And so what happens is, like, founder story, it seems, oh, that's not important. I'll do that another time, or I'll do that next month. I'll do that later. But as we're seeing, like with so much competition, like how do you stand out? You stand out by really leaning into who you are as a business person. And the founder story is just, it's so key. I'm very passionate about it. So I'm ready for all your questions. Go easy on me, Terry.
Well, I mean, let's warm up first, right? Okay. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're trying to find their unique differentiator, right? Like what makes, my service different, my product different. And it shouldn't be unique. It should be kind of basic and easy to understand. If your product or service is so unique that it's confusing, you're not going to have any customers. And that's why I often say, especially if you're a professional service provider like I am, often your personality is your unique differentiator, right? It's not like your process or whatever your algorithm you're saying that you made up. And people can see through that too, by the way. So being able to build your personal brand is the best way to build your business brand as well. And the founder video can help you do that. But can you just more or less bullet point out, what is a founder video? What does this consist of? How is it different from a brand video? What is a founder video?
Yeah, I mean, the founder story is not, or your founder video, your founder story, I think a really common way to think of it is like your about page, on your website, or, your highlight bucket on your Instagram page that says, my story. It's not just a story, it is the story. Like, to your point, you risk you don't do one, and you risk getting lost in a sea of a million other business consultants, right? Or a million other video coaches and video, strategy coaches. But you craft one well, and it like perfectly aligns with who you are and to your audience. I mean, you can really skyrocket your business quicker, and your founder story as a small business allows you to actually compete with bigger players. So it's how, you know, that small business in the middle of nowhere can actually compete with, I mean, Nike is probably a bad example, but can compete with a much larger brand because they have nailed their story and they've created a community. And I think, so when you say like, what is a founder story? It really is, it's a story of you. It's the story of how you started your business. It's the story of your journey. It's what you believe in. It's about you, but in like a weird, you know, introverted, like what's it, like flip-flop way. It's actually about, if you're doing it properly, it's actually about your audience, and it's about the community that you're trying to form with your business.
I think it's easy to mess this up by just talking about yourself and kind of like rereading your resume, perhaps, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I did this, I did that, now I'm doing this, please hire me. Yeah. So what are some common ways people mess up their founder story and make it about themselves as opposed to about their audience?
Yeah, this is a really tough conundrum, because if you think about it, it's like, okay, do your founder story. What's your founder story? It's a story about you and your business and how you started. So it is very, you know, you centric. But what people tend to do, I mean, think about pages. Like when you go to an about page, how many about pages start off at the top? Wait, hold on, Terry, we're getting some things that something is wrong by a few people.
That's not good.
No.
Can you guys still see us, hear us, or is it?
Just the last few messages have been something went wrong. So, okay, well, I will keep talking unless people say there's something wrong. But if you go to about pages, like most of the time, people will come right out of the gate with exactly what you said. Like, here's where I went to school. Here are the cool companies I used to work with. Here's the brands that I used to work with. And so it becomes like this really like boring list of credentials. It's like you credentialize yourself, and that's boring. Because if you think about it, when someone is going to your about page, more than likely they already know about you. So people want to know more about you. You know, think about those businesses where you're like, oh my God, like who started this product? Like, I just want to know more. And you go and you're like so underwhelmed, or you're frustrated. Like, your people want connection. So really, if you think about your founder story, you want to connect, you want to be relatable. And how the number one way to not connect and not be relatable is to just vomit all the brands that you used to work with, or all the, you know, the Silicon Valley, you know, resume that you have. Like, you're not impressing people. Maybe you're impressing people, but I'd argue no, but you're definitely not connecting. So don't miss that opportunity when you have someone's attention on your about page. Like, go big, like go be interesting, like tell a story.
One way that I messed up initially is I was that guy who just bragged the whole time.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, I went to the University at Buffalo, got an MBA, then worked at Adobe and Facebook, and I'm 6'4". And yeah, it's like, okay, cool. That's a story, but no one's going to connect with that. So what I've done now is I've humbled myself. And I talked about the times when I messed up starting my business early on, how frustrating it was, moments that I missed out, in my opinion, in my kids, because I was there, but I wasn't fully present because I was always worried about things. And I want to help people avoid those challenges. So you said a few weeks ago, you want to find the villain in the story. Yes. And I think that's interesting because now we have this arc where it's not, you have not been winning your whole life. Can you explain what this means, finding the villain in your story, and why it's so important?
Yeah. So some of this is like, it goes back to, you know, my journalism days. You know, it's basic storytelling skills. So if you think about, you know, there's a quote that, you know, without Goliath, David was just a kid throwing rocks, right? Like, you need a conflict. You need something, someone to cause friction and tension in order for it to be an interesting story. Okay. And so what you said so beautifully is, and I think this backs into another thing, is like relatability. People sometimes think, I don't have a story. Like, my backstory is boring. It's too basic. You know, but I always challenge that. Like, in order to have a compelling story or an inspiring story, you don't need to have like climb up a tree and save a bunch of cats, or, you know, been homeless and then turned your life around. I mean, those are epic stories. They're very rare. Okay. Like, most stories of founder stories are not that epic. That doesn't mean you don't have a story. So when you say what the villain is, what I often say to people is, you probably started your company or your business or your side hustle, wherever you may be, because you felt like you could do something better, something was already missing in that industry, or you had an idea that was like it could improve upon something that already existed. So try asking yourself, like, what can I make? Is that it might be a concept, it doesn't have to be a person. Maybe if you left your corporate job, it could quite literally be like a boss that was like a villain, right? That caused you to like live life on your own terms. But it could also be like more ideology. Like I worked with a woman who left her corporate job because she's like, I'm sick and tired of how corporate America treats women that are having children in this country. So she started a company based on this villain of like, this is awful, and like, I'm going to fix it. That's a really powerful hook. And also it's an indicator that if you can pinpoint to a villain in your about page or in your founder story, it's a good indicator that you actually are telling a story and not just like listing a bunch of events or a bunch of features. Like, I'm tall and, I went to, this university, I worked at Google. Like, that's just a list. That's a list of things, not a story.
There's like a lot of people that are feeling the University of Buffalo story, though. I see the comments.
I know. Like,
thank you.
You blast this out on like your alumni or something. Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, degrees paying off. Let's go back to what you said in regards to the villain, though, because often people feel boring, right? Like, I didn't have a bad upbringing, and I went to maybe it's Buff State instead of University of Buffalo. In case any Buff State people here. Yeah. But I think what's important is to say, like, I had some kind of tension or whatever it was, and what you can also do is be the enemy of your audience's enemy.
Yeah.
So, for example, this guy, Dr. Jason Weserlund, he's the founder of the Theragun, which is like a percussion muscle therapy device. So he started that company because he himself was a chiropractor, but he got into a very bad car accident motorcycle accident, and could not heal his pain. That's how he started the Theragun. And that's his story, right? So no one can take that away from him, even those competitors. But he's the enemy of people who have chronic pain and cannot find relief from it. So in your story, as you were saying before, we can say, I'm the enemy of women being undervalued in corporate America. This other woman I met, she's the enemy of boring baby food. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be like this huge, I guess it is a pretty big deal because we both have a bunch of kids between us. But if you can express that, then it's kind of like that hero's journey that Donald Miller talks about, right? And I think that's the problem with our about pages or our founder videos. It's all about us, but it's not saying, look, you're here. Gosh, I hear you. And this is what I do to help people like you so you can get here, as opposed to saying, again, vomiting out your resume.
Yeah. And I think people forget, like, especially if you're in, like, I'm a service-based, right? So much of service-based industry we're so integral in what we do that, like, you want to attract the people you should be attracting and you want to connect. So when I'm thinking about my about page or like who I'm trying to attract, it's like I'm trying to think about the person that is coming to me, like what the hell is in their world, like what are their issues and what parts of my backstory actually would relate to them, and how can I use that strategically? And because here's the other thing, like, this is why I think your founder story is the most valuable, powerful story you have. It's so versatile. You should be carving out different pieces of it depending on what you're trying to do. So yes, the about founder page is sort of like the main hub, but really if you're trying to get press, if you're trying to land podcasts, if you're trying to, like, maybe do some brand collaborations with people that are bigger than you, different parts of your backstory might be better served to that. So that's why it's so important to even just map it out to begin with, so what you're dealing with and how you can like mix and match it to like what you're trying to do in your business.
I love that part where you're saying, like, just, you don't have to share the whole story every time. No. And you can pivot it, because when someone reaches out to me in regards to a paid speaking opportunity, I'll say, oh, I've done this and that and that. Mm-hmm. But someone yesterday reached out to me in regards to some kind of like influencer video that dealt with a family. And I'm like, oh, I got a bunch of kids, so it's like, that's the story, which the other company wouldn't care about, but this one would. So you're not being inauthentic, you're just picking and choosing. But what I want to do now is just, I like taking notes, right? I like having key takeaways, and we can go deeper afterwards. But Can we just bullet point out what a founder story is? What do you say first, second, third, fourth? And that way we can all have a good tangible takeaway and continue the conversation from there.
Okay. I mean, so there's a couple of ways to do that, but like just to kind of, I'll keep it to social. Like, so if you want to, let's say, like go on LinkedIn, or you want to, maybe like go on Instagram and you want to kind of quick, like introduce yourself. First of all, you have to give yourself bumper rails. Also, what people don't realize in video, there is so much writing. All right. I think sometimes people think like video, you just think of like by the way, I did not set the StreamYard up properly for this, but I should have more lights. But like you think of the equipment and the gear, but really 85% of great video making, great founder video making is done in the writing. Okay. So if you know that, then it's really encouraging because you can give yourself some like bumper rails, even if you're not a great writer. Okay. So what I like to think of it is, okay, I actually wrote myself some notes on the side so I don't forget it. Okay. So you definitely want to start off your founder story with some sort of hook. And for those of you who are in like social media world, like this is not new, right? And the first 5 seconds should make the viewer want to continue to watch. Okay. It could be something as simple as like, 2016 was the best and worst year of my life. Oh, okay. All right. Like, I don't know you, but like, you just hooked me in a little bit. You could start off by saying like a controversial statement, no one over the age of 40 should have their belly button pierced. Oh, okay. Like if you're so think about like, there's different ways to hook your audience in. You can say, a statement, a question. You can maybe ask like a provocative question that relates to your business. You can storytell like 2016 was the best and worst year of my life. Or one of my favorite ways called a pattern interrupt. So a pattern interrupt is it's a really clever way of jarring someone's attention to actually divert their attention. So for example, if I was doing a founder video, I might go like this. I might actually start like this. And so and someone's like, wait, what? I see half of her body. And then I'm like, oh, hi. Like, it's sort of like jarring your attention. Like if you're a product business, like for example, this is another way, and I'm getting to the rest of it. But like, let's say, this is a tripod, right? I could be like tinkering with this and looking down and being like, oh, yeah, you know what I mean? So it's a very clever, low lift way to hook someone into your video content that doesn't require a huge big lift. Okay, so
let me jump in real quick. I agree with you. I think that's great. But I was watching a video today, like a YouTube pre-roll, and this like grown ass man was holding up like an Iron Man USB plug, like, and he's talking, and like he's trying to distract me with the Iron Man thing, even though it had nothing to do with his business. And I'm like,
oh, well, that's not, yeah.
I'm like, that's a stretch. I get the pattern interrupting thought, but it's like I'm not gonna like lower myself for it either. So I thought that was goofy.
But that's like manipulative. That's just like bad decision making. Because like,
I watched it though, so he got me. I was like, what's he doing with this thing?
Maybe okay. Well, he influenced you a little bit, but yeah. So obviously you want to make it so it makes sense. Okay, so once you do your hook, then another way to think about it is you want to give your audience, and we'll do it in C's, alliteration. So 4 C's. Okay. First is context. You need to give your audience context to like, you have to always assume no one knows who you are, and always assume no one cares, and always assume that you're like asking permission for someone's attention. Okay. So when you go into the video like that, or your story like that, it humbles you a bit, and that prevents you from rambling off like your accomplishments, because no one cares about you, right? Not yet. So context, give yourself just a little setup, introduce yourself. Like, I'm going to share with you today why I decided to leave corporate America, or quit my job, or change my industry, and insert the thing. And even though it was terrifying, I knew I had to do it. Okay, now I have a little bit of context to this person. And if I'm supposed to be in your orbit, I will continue to watch. Because remind you, you're not trying to attract everyone. Okay. Then the next part of the 4 C's is, I call it the complication. All right. So after you hook them, you give them some context. Then I always like to say, you want to imagine like the person on the video, like nodding their head, like, yes, oh my gosh, like this person, yes, this person gets it. So that might be, explain the problem you want to solve. So I noticed this was wrong, and this was wrong. It was happening, in the storytelling industry, and I knew there was a better way. Okay. So then you move on to the next part. And mind you, these are like quick. These are like 10, 15 seconds. Okay. then I call it, the next part is confession. All right. So this is the part now to then introduce yourself a little bit. Like, why is this issue important to you? And why did you want to do something about it? So maybe say something like, the reason, that these pain points made me so passionate is because of this experience, and this experience. And this is where you can personalize your founder bit. Like, to give you an example, just this morning, a woman reached out to me that I worked with, and she just got a huge piece of press in Denver. She's a health coach and she's a doula. And she started her business because she experienced a crazy trauma as a Black woman in the workforce. And so there was nowhere for her to turn. And so she started her business from these very, very personal, deep experiences. And she never talked about it because she felt like that wasn't what she was supposed to do. When she started doing more confessing in her founder stories and saying, this issue is so important to me because of when I was treated like this, and when I was doing this, all of a sudden, like, her business is like completely taken off. And so I'm just telling you that confessional part, like, that's important. All right. And then the final C is, I say, to coach. Okay. You want to leave a little tidbit of value at the end of your story that makes someone that wants to come back. So, okay. So you could say something like, even though this has been, a challenging experience, I know I'm doing what I'm purposed to do. And one tip I have for anyone nervous to start the business that you've always wanted to is insert the thing of value. So that was a lot that I just regurgitated right there. But that's a very simple way to think of it. Hook, context, complication, confessional, and then coach.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because, like you said, they're guardrails. And you have to figure out what to put in there, but sometimes just the structure of a story we get wrong, right? So one structure that I've used before was a situation, complication, question, answer. Situation is, hey, you want to start a new business in 2022, but you're really confused about it. Complication is, and your 9 to 5 is paying your bills, so that's a lot to give up. Question is, how do you live your dream of becoming an entrepreneur, yet still keep a roof over your head? Answer is, start a side hustle, blah blah. And if you need help start a side hustle, here you go. Right. So yeah. It's similar, and I think the point is just have a structure where it's not like, I did this, then I did this, then I did that. Still winning, talk to you later, right? No one wants to hear that. No. And I love how brief you are because, and I think you can talk to this effectively, you have to be brutal in how you edit. And I hate that because I'm long-winded by nature. My kids hate it too, right? So when you're doing any kind of video, you have to leave out certain parts, but put enough in so people want to learn more about you. And the fact that you said you end with some kind of tip, I think is beneficial. But how do you deal with that when someone's trying to cram in too much and you're kind of pushing back on the story? How's that work for you?
Oh, no, it happens all the time. And here's a few things. 150 words is about 1 minute of video. The typical attention span to get to the 1 minute mark in a video is less than 30%. So less than 30% of your audience will watch any 1 minute video that you post on your feed. That is scary. This is your audience too. So you got to figure it's the stats are probably less. So it's actually more like if you actually were to blast out whatever video you have, it is a negligible amount. So when I say even these 1 minute bumper rails, if you can do this in 30 seconds, power to you. I just think that that's for founder story, again, not to go all over here, but we're talking about a lot of different things. Your about page and your founder story, you have liberty to go deeper. People probably have already discovered you. You can do that 2 minute-ish video because people probably want to know more about you. But when you're talking about targeting different audiences, yeah, a minute of video, that's too long. So what I do a lot of teaching with my clients and my students is we have pieces of video. So we have a hero piece, and that hero piece is your website, but then we have 4 to 5 micro pieces that are 30 seconds max. And those are very, very edited pieces that you literally say like 2 things, and like that's all you need. So the answer there is don't cram too much, because you should have different pieces of your founder story ready for the go when you want to deploy them.
I think the ability, or I know the ability to quickly tell a story by video will be just crucial to any company success in the coming years. Because think about TikTok. I mean, you can do longer videos now there too, but it's like under a minute is kind of the standard. 30 seconds is better. And I look at people like Marie Folio. She does a really good job with that. If you go to like Facebook ads library, just write that down.
Yeah.
You can look her up there and you'll see her stories. But you just have to give enough information to make people want to see more, then do another video. It's like, hey, you talked about this thing, talk about the other thing later. But if you can't get over this uncomfortable feeling of that wasn't enough, then you're not going to succeed. I'm just convinced of it.
I mean, think about even podcasts. I'm sorry. If I see podcasts at an hour, I'm like, I never make it. Like, it is even amazing podcasts that I follow, that I love the host, I never get to the hour mark. So it's like, unfortunately, it's not even attention span so much. It's because we are so bombarded to no fault. Like, everyone's vying for our attention, and we're thrust in this world now. So it's not even that our attention spans can't handle it. It's just like, as soon as we do something, we have 5 other dings, and now everyone's working from home. It's like, just the society and work is changed as a whole. And so I think that's where the shorter video comes into play. It's like, don't make it harder for people. People have enough going on. Like, make it easy. Give them a little thing. It's like, don't worry, I got a lot more coming, and I just piecemeal it out. It's also smarter because also it's less pressure on you, and also then you're not droning on and on and on and on at a camera for like 10 minutes, I mean, we're not unless you're a YouTuber, like vlogger, like that's a different animal. But most of us, for small businesses where we're trying to educate or, inform clients or like be a thought leader, like that's, you want to be like mindful of your space.
Yeah. Again, people are asking, is it being recorded? That's always a good question. So yes, if someone said, is this almost over? That's a bad question.
Oh, God.
Is this almost over? Like, when's it done?
We're not being successful in people's attention spans. Oh my God.
No, I dig it. Let's get more like hands-on. So most people will be recording themselves with a camera phone, right? Yes. And even that, I know there's an art to it, because you've taught me some things that are very beneficial. So just like 2 or 3 tips on how to record yourself with a camera phone and not be boring or like I am, too stoic.
You're actually one of my favorite stories, because it is true. I worked with Terry before, and I remember when we were doing it. I was like, Terry, my friend, I'm like, your energy level is like at a -5. I need you at
saving it. You never know when you need your energy. Why would I waste it?
I need you at a 1. Like, I need you at a 1 on a scale of 10. Like, here's the thing: the camera dulls everything. So, and that includes your energy. So I'm not saying that you need to be like, hey, if that's not your personality. And I think, Terry, you're such a good example, because you're so yourself on your videos. But you do have to push whatever level of, like, if you feel like, oh my God, I'm talking too loud, or, oh, that feels like it's a bit too much, it's probably perfect, because you'll be surprised. Like, you think you're being animated, or you think you're saying a point, and it comes across really flat. So I think number 1 is you do have to up it a little bit on the video. Number 2, I wanted to say, so I worked at the Today Show for 6 years, and I cannot tell you how many times those anchors in the chair every single morning at the top 1% and a bottleneck of their industry, you don't really go much higher if your goal is to like be on a morning show than like Good Morning America, Today Show. They would rehearse the opening hello line probably 4 or 5 times. And I'm talking, hi, good morning. It's March 23rd and welcome to the show. And we have a really good show. Like, they would repeat that at least 4 times before we went to air. So if you have these experts that are constantly honing in their craft, I just watched the Kenny G documentary. I mean, the man is like, he practices like 6 hours a day still. Like, what? You're Kenny G? You don't need to. But his is like, yes, I do. That's why I'm this good. So my point is, like, if you're not doing video that much and you're getting frustrated, it's because you're not doing it enough. And it doesn't need to be these like big productions. Like, even that's the beautiful thing about TikTok and Instagram. Like, you can just show up now, connect to your audience. And the more you do that, you're going to find out what's your vibe, like, and what is comfortable and what your audience likes to see. So I'd say, number one, energy higher than you're used to. Number two, you just have to like do it. That's such an annoying thing, but it's like anything in life. You just have to keep doing it and you will get better. And I'd say probably the other thing is, like, the reason there's so much bad content is because I think people look at other people in their industries and they feel like you have to mimic, or it's like, oh, I'm going to do that. Like, that's working for that person. But if it's not, it'd be like if Terry, you tried to like be super bubbly. I would be so weirded out.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Like, or you tried to be
my kids would be weirded out. They'd say, "What the hell's wrong with that?" Like, it's just...
like I know, like, I just feel like, you know, what works for other people, and that's the whole thing of like your founder story being like your unique IP. It's I feel it sounds cliche, but it's like really just kind of leaning into who you are. And that's so basic. I hate that. Lean into who you are. That's not what I mean, but truly, like, don't everyone. Like, everyone feels like they're being judged, but the problem is that everyone else is so worried about themselves that, like, if that's preventing you from being on camera, rest be assured people are too worried about themselves to judge you properly. So that's a shame if that's why you're not going on video, because of someone else's maybe perception, or like a random stranger on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I always say like this. I mean, let's say someone looks at you and they do think it's silly or ridiculous. They're not going to like share it with their friends. They're going to keep scrolling and go about their miserable day. So don't let them hold you back from, you know, from doing content. And another thing that you taught me was to, if you're using your cell phone, just to move around a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And show like different parts of like wherever you are, because that movement can distract from you and make it seem more interesting.
And also hold something. I do it all the time. Like, I did a bunch of Instagram lives last week. It was like every day. It was too much. I'm like, I'm gonna pump the brakes a little bit. But what I mean, honestly, like, I there were days where I like wasn't feeling it, and I had to like hold something, because when you hold something too, it kind of gives your hand something to do, and it makes sense. So I'd be like, I'd even write notes in here, and I'd open it up, and so holding something also like kind of grounds yourself. And it's funny, I see that you're standing up, which is also a really good tip. Like, usually if I'm presenting, I
just didn't want to clean the shelf behind me if I move.
No, well, I thought, yeah. Yeah. So usually I'd be high, but I'm not right now. But I'd also standing up. It's like those power poses, like the Amy Cuddy, right? It's the same thing with video. It's like holding something, standing up. You know, it just makes you feel a bit more authoritative. And unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. Fortunately, unfortunately, video, it's not going away. So if video is not something that you like, unfortunately, that is how people consume. So we all now have to learn how to do it, especially as a small business owner, you have to like do the tools that are free to us. Like, unless you have Netflix budgets, which most of us probably don't, like, you're your best asset. No one cares more. Like, no one's going to spread the word more about your service or what you do. So it's like, I'm sorry, like, you gotta use that. Right. But the fortunate part is it allows people like us to do really well and to like compete and to start. Like, this morning I spoke with a bunch of women. This woman, she makes chalk bags for rock climbers, because apparently when you rock climb to do the chalk, like, it's too hard to because you might like fall off a mountain. So she developed this bag, and all these rock climbers just paste it, and you just go like that. She's like a celebrity in the rock climbing space. And she uses, like, she's in a small town in like South Africa. And I'm like, this is, the internet is amazing. And she has this successful business. So power of video. And she's able to do that because she can market herself and her product and reach climbers in America from being in South Africa. Like, hello, that's amazing. So the video is so powerful. So double-edged sword.
Yeah. One thing I would say is, let's pretend you don't want to be on camera too much. Okay. And Zoe loves rock climbing. So there we go.
Binder.
One thing you can do, and this is something that I know B-roll isn't new. So B-roll is when you have like some kind of background video. So if you're saying Patrice and I live in Brooklyn, we could have just like a generic video of Brooklyn playing in the background. You can go to pexels.com and just download free B-roll. And that can be, you can start talking on camera, but when you want to get off, just throw some B-roll behind it. And I use a tool called Descript for that. It's DE script. I'm not gonna do those, but I made it my own video like that in like probably 15 minutes where I just told some story about whatever. And when I want to cheat and look at my notes, that's when I put the B-roll up. So it worked well. So there's some really cool stuff you can do with free products or low cost products as well. And that's what I've been doing with some of my stories. I did one yesterday on Instagram about the way I responded to a question during a panel I was on. Someone asked a question about time management. And I said, well, time management is actually pain management because it takes pain to go through self-discipline, right? You have to restrain yourself from things you don't want to do. So the problem isn't time management. It's people that don't want to suffer the pain required to commit to these actions. Ooh. People want to be comfortable. So I said, that's the challenge. It's not time. It's you just don't want to be uncomfortable, but you're going to suffer regardless. You can either suffer through self-discipline or you can suffer regret from not achieving your goals. So I was like, maybe I went on in too much on that one. So I made a reaction video, like, did I go too far? But I also had like people who gave me good feedback on that. I had like their text messages come up on the screen as I was talking. I'm like, no, because I got some pretty good feedback from this person and this person and this person. This person wants to hire me, but that wasn't me on screen. It was just me just showing this stuff. And then it went back to me saying, hey, this is who I am. And the best version of yourself is all you need to be. So you can do stuff like that too. And it took me like, I don't know, like half an hour or so.
I was going to say, like, there's so many, and I was just teaching this morning to a group of people. And here's what, like, and look, I know this is like LinkedIn is a different, there's all these different platforms, right? So, but what's amazing is like, if you're not comfortable yet, like, let me give you an example. I worked with this woman last year who has a mindset money coaching business.
Am I the only guy you've ever worked with? It's always like this woman. Like, what's the deal with this?
No, I do. I know. I like you are, yes, you're my only guy. You're very special. No, you are special. But no, I tend to attract more women, but I do know I've worked with lots of men. But like
name one.
Well,
I'm messing with you. Go ahead.
What all the men I've worked with are all from LinkedIn. It's interesting. So like, you know, I'm more, like I said, like Instagram is more my home, but I'm trying to branch out a little bit. So, but this woman, this is a good example because there's this woman who had this mindset or money business, right? She worked with immigrants. What I learned in working with her is that she was in an arranged marriage. She was at the airport with all her belongings in her life, utterly depressed, going to fly to the home of her new husband's family, who she'd never met and was going to marry him. Like, and she had this moment where she's at the airport and she's like, I have a choice. Like, I can get on this plane and my life, that's my life, or I have to leave my family, like actually leave. And she got on another plane, and she took a plane to New York. Okay. This is a true story. I like get the chills every time I talk it. She never talked about this because obviously that's like a big thing, you know, lots of trauma, right? And I was like, okay. I was like, whoa, this is like huge. And like, oh my God, like how many women, not just like immigrants, but like even like people leading abusive situations. Like there's so many moments where you have to make these really tough choices. And so she wasn't quite ready to share it vocally, right? Like on the camera. But so you know what she did? She made an Instagram reel and she put sound to it, like, you know, kind of like her cultural, like a soundtrack. And she was on the screen and she literally just went like this and pointed and kind of went like that. And she shared the story of arranged marriage and everything. She said that reel, she said she has never in her life had so much new business inquiries. She got like reached out to speak at like organizations. She got content. It catapulted her business and she didn't even speak. So there are ways, training wheels, you know, we have all these amazing platforms at our disposal. And what you said, like using other video, but really the goal is for you to speak because that's where the magic is. And that is where the opportunities that you're not even maybe thinking about now they're not going to come to you unless you talk and like share, like get the passion out of your system, because that's attractive. It's attractive to people, other people's passions.
And I know we're kind of going on a different path from founder. It's founders making videos at this point, which I appreciate. But yeah, that's the key to unlocking your revenue potential, because that's how you get on panels, podcasts, you get free press for your business as a result of that, whether it be through magazines or whatever. But if you're not showing these things because you're just saying how-to stuff or just product or service things, it's not going to work. But even on my end, some things that I talk about even tangentially, that what I say? Whatever, you get the point, right? Because I talk about mindset stuff a lot. And someone's like, oh, are you a mindset coach? I'm like, no, I just think it's important because there's only three things you can train as humans, right? You can train your craft, you can train your body, and you can train your mind. But we spend a disproportionate amount of time on the first two and not nearly enough on the last one, which is your mind, right? So gotta do it. So someone's like, oh, can you come talk to my company about that? I'm like, that's really all I can say. And probably like fill in some other stuff. But people are like, hey, no, it's fine. That's fine. They just want that authenticity. So yeah, the more videos you make, even the ones that I'm using air quotes flop, you never know who's going to see it and say, look, this was great. And that's how you make that moment of relevance with them and connection.
I feel like these stories, it's, because when you like know what you should be doing in your work, and I've just totally leaned into Founder Story really in the past like year, like focused on it. So I have all these stories now where people are finally seeing the results of their work. Like this company in Chicago, they're in round 2 of Shark Tank. And she says the only reason that they even got to round 2, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, she goes, our founder story is so amazing and tight and concise that like even the interviewer producer is like, wow, like your story is amazing. Now it's like, so she's like, if you told me a year ago, I would have been in round 2 for Shark Tank as a teeny tiny product business. Like, she wouldn't have believed you. So, it's like, it's when you do start leaning into your founder story or bits of it, I just seen it happen all the time. Like these really cool opportunities come your way. And that's kind of what it's all about.
Another thing, I think the benefit of having it documented is you can go from a one-to-one approach to a many-to-many, because there's many people telling other people about you. And it's so easy to recite your story. Oh, you'll love Patrice. She used to work at this show. Now she does this. She has a bunch of kids. She's always taking pictures of them, like going to school and everything. Her husband doesn't like it, but he's a good guy. At least he plays along. Yeah. So shout out to Ollie if he's listening. Yeah. But it's so easy to explain who you are because you just say it so often. Even at the top of the call, like your intro was much better than mine. I'm just like, hey, my name's Terry. I like CrossFit. And you just like had a very good narrative that drew people in. So if you can do that, when you're on a stage, on a podcast or whatever, it's just so easy to tell that you're a pro, and you can get more opportunities like that.
Yeah. And you reminded me of something. And now I am, I was going to say too, like, honestly, 5 years ago, it didn't matter as much. Really. It didn't, you could get away with having a business and actually not even maybe having a photo on your about page, because it was about the product. And a lot of product businesses, the ones that don't lean into that, they're kind of missing it. Like, it's like, oh, it's not about me, right? It's about my product, or it's not. But the thing is, like, and this is probably a different live, but like, people buy differently now. The value system of a company is important, right? And like, you will be exposed if, you're doing some bad stuff or stuff that is not aligned with what you believe in. And it's the same thing with you. So like, it allows you to attract your community. And also that's a whole other thing. Like, businesses now that can come with a built-in community and a built-in audience are so much more valuable. Even if you're trying to raise money or you're trying to get VC, like if you can say, by the way, I have like 10,000 people that are like rallied around me, and because they're following me, like the Kardashians do this brilliantly. Like, I hate to say that, but they do. Like, they back into their community, but like, you can do that. So you start, but the only way to start that community is you, right? Until maybe you get to a point where then you can but like Sarah Blakely, she's the founder of Spanx. She's such a great example. Like, she's a billionaire, but it is still about Sarah. Like, she shows up every day, videos, chats, like I will buy what that woman tells me to buy. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I will buy it. Like, because I am so in line with what she puts out. So it's the slowest ROI. Your personal brand as a founder, it really is. It's a slow. This is not an overnight thing. The slowest ROI you will have, but is the most beneficial, because when it hits, then it goes. But it's a slow roll. So the sooner you can start now by doing that video, like being consistent once a week, I don't care, but just start doing it, and it'll feel slow and like no one cares and nothing happening. And then all of a sudden it's like everything hits. So start yesterday. Like, seriously, just start. You'll be so glad you did it in a year.
And we have some questions coming in. I want to piggyback off that comment, then we'll start grabbing them. But I was talking to Dory Clark. She's a consultant, author, instructor.
Obsessed.
I'm picking up on it. So, and she was saying, like, you can like grind for like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and hit this inflection point where things just take off. But it's not linear; it's exponential. And that's what I'm hearing with your founder. Like, you know, you're grinding, but all of a sudden, you know, the right person hears it, shares it, and all of a sudden it just blows up. So you do want to keep moving forward with it, even if it does seem like, you know, you can't even see, like, you know, the outcome from it, because it is beneficial.
Yeah.
But
don't
Olivia would love some.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well, no, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because I think people the thing about videos is like people look for views. So if they see like only 5 people watched my stories, or only 10 people like clicked on that YouTube video, you're like, oh, that's proof. That's validation. What I'm doing is bad. Doesn't matter. So then you stop. But that's not the way to think about it, because in the beginning, you will not have a lot of people watching you. Like, when I started doing this, like, you know, I get a lot of engagement on my stories on Instagram. When I first started, I think I had like 30, you know, whatever, like it was like my mom, like, so it's okay. It takes time to build, but give yourself the grace to build that. And that's why I'm always like, you got to start now, because every day is ads and like it adds, I don't know. I don't have a clever thing to say, but it's just like, you need to start. Okay. Should we take questions?
Yeah, I do wanted to say one thing real quick, but yeah, I've actually seen you like evolve with your storytelling of you on Instagram, because before it was like stuff you were doing for Citykin, that site you have for city parents, and that's great, but it wasn't as much you. But now it's like, you know, I know you obviously personally, but I feel like a lot of other people do too, because you're letting them into, you know, your experiences as many as you want to. Obviously not everything, but you've really upped your game. And again, like, it's nice of Ali to go along with it too, because he's like,
my husband, by the way, did not sign up to be like an Instagram spouse, but he's like, I find immense joy in like filming him on video when he doesn't know it. So,
Olivia's asking, is there a resource or script we can learn from? I want to learn about crafting the founder video. So something on your site, or what's the best way to do that?
I mean, Olivia, I should Instagram. I'm really actually, I'm on LinkedIn too, but yes, I mean, I have a few things. So honestly, like, I'm not trying to promo anything, but I have a few different options for you. I have like live programs where I could coach you and we could do this together. I'm actually kicking one off in April. I'm almost filled though. But there's spaces open where we actually craft it together and we put it to video, and then my team edits it. So it's a really great, like, high-low of getting great video content where you don't have to edit. But I also have some like DIY. I have a DIY course on my homepage, and it's like, there's a script template included. It's like $96. It's like, or $97, and you get templates, you get videos. I do a sample video and I break it down. And also, like, my Instagram is free, and I give out a lot of content and advice, and I'm really good in the DM. So that's what I got for you.
You, I think you don't realize how much value you're giving away, because you seem to forget about it, but your newsletter is good.
Oh, my!
And because I forward your newsletter to people, they're like, "Oh, this is great," and they sign up. And I remember one time I asked you a question about something you had in your newsletter, and you're like, "Oh, I said that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was really good, and that's why I would like to talk right now." So I know you put a lot of thought into it, but I don't know if you realize the impact it has on people like me and everyone else. So I would definitely say, you know, Olivia, if you're on her list, she gives you these step-by-step things. They're very, very clear.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, Terry. And Terry, you were like, I know. Should we just be like a love fest back and forth now? Because, like, honestly, you are like one of my mentors. So it's like so funny. So I appreciate you saying that. I really do.
Of course. Cool. So we got like
We
a couple
have
minutes here.
Want to take
Can
more
Patrice share her Instagram handle? Yeah, Patrice, what's your Instagram handle?
I wish there was a chat here. Is there a chat? No. It's are you like the mod? I don't know. It's at. So this is why I was like, God, Terry's so clever. You put it's Terry Rice, and I'm just realizing I never use StreamYard. This is cool. So it's my full name. So Patrice, Patrice, and then its last name is Poltzer, Pol. T is in Thomas, Z is in zebra, ER. Just at Patrice Poltzer. And it's LinkedIn, and although my LinkedIn is like, I gotta. You're like, check your LinkedIn. I'm like, I have. I'm like sifting through 91 like unread like.
Let's shift a little bit, Patrice, because you're spelling your last name, which is different from your husband's. I'd love for you to share the story of why you chose not to take your husband's last name.
Well, it wasn't even like I mean, honestly, it never crossed my mind that I would ever change my name. And I mean, there's not like a big story, but it's just I just felt like at the time I had been in media for so long, and I was a late bloomer. Like I was an intern at 29. So if anyone is out there being like, I am lost, or I intern at 29, it was like I felt a lot of shame. That's a whole nother live. So I remember when I finally got going and I got my groove, and I'm like, like won some awards at the Today Show, and like I'm like, oh hell, that is my name, like Patrice Poltzer. I'm like, I can't change it to a different last name. I finally like did something in this career. So it was just more in my husband he doesn't care. So yes, I am the only girl though in my family. So there's that. That's also I'm the only Poltzer.
Oh, I love that story though, because I mean, too often it's assumed you're just going to give up this brand you built just because Oliver Smith wants to marry you, but it's
your daughters. It's going to be different. I think that's like all that stuff is so like, why? Like that was decided by like some old white dude. Like, no. So that's all changing. So I think like the younger generation is not going to probably change their names, or maybe it'll be the opposite. I did ask my husband if he would take mine. He's like, he's very like pro whatever. He's like, no. I was like, okay.
At least you tried. But Patrice, it seems like every time you tell a story, there's a side story to it. So we definitely have to do this again soon, because I know you have a lot more to share, and I know people would love to hear from you as well.
This is amazing. I'm loving this. This is really cool. How often you're on here every week, aren't you, Terry? Most of the time?
Trying to. I'm working on it. This is 2 weeks in a row. So I gotta make it happen next week too.
Well, I hope everyone, I mean, it sounds like all your followers know, but Terry is like, it's so funny. So I have with two of my like partners that I run a lot of programs with, like Sabina and Joelle, and then like I have all these people, and I can't tell you how many times like people will comment on like, Terry is so brilliant. And like my husband just met yesterday. He's like, he's a smart guy. I'm like, I know. I'm like, don't take it. No, he's my friend though. But like, you're just, I think you're incredible. And I think you're so generous with your information. I think that's the key. I think some people are like, oh, I don't want to share, but you just give it away because you have so much information that you could never possibly give it away, which is a really good move. So thank you for having me on your channel. I was actually a little nervous, so that's why I wore a blazer.
I know you look great though, but I think on that point, when people shepherd information and they don't want to share it, that tells me they have a scarcity mindset and they're projecting lack. And if you think about it, I mean, information is free. The majority of stuff that I'm saying, you're saying, you can Google. We're filtering it to you. Maybe we're kind of funny, but it's all out there. Information is free. Implementation is what you pay for. And customization is what you pay more for, right? Oh, so I have no problem giving things away because I'm creating content for the person I was 5 years ago. And I wish I had information like this back then because I would have struggled so much. So if I have it, why should I just keep it to myself and, not help someone else at the same time?
Yeah, no, that's such a good, and that'll just come back to you like tenfold. So it's just a good mindset to have in business.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Patrice, I'm gonna let you go. But everyone, thank you very much. You know where to follow Patrice. You know her.
Oh my God, I wish I could see everyone's like faces. So yeah, this is awesome. I will come back anytime you ask me.
Oh, sounds good. All right, take care, everybody.
All right.
See you.
Bye, Terry.